I'm
Okay.
gonna work on editing, like hopefully the finished product during
Okay.
this.
Sweet action. Sweet
Okay.
action.
Well,
David,
So yeah, I'm listening.
what's this look like?
You're a little dark, but I like where it's going.
I mean, is the aspect?
Oh yeah, it's full screen. Yeah, it's full screen. Great. It's great. Or
Okay.
full. It fills the box.
Okay.
It's good. Short answer. It's good.
Ooh, Tim, you look good.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, I showered.
Said you look good. I don't know how you smell.
Okay, whoever the
1, 2,
host
3,
is, you need
4,
to
5,
enable
6.
screen sharing.
so one second.
So I can share the audio.
Oh, that's my fault. Sorry, Brooke. I did that to you. Oh no. You're also going to have to change it that multiple participants can share their screen, Brooke. Or the video will not work. Okay, while they're sorting out that, how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Good. Can everyone hear me? Yes, I got a yes, I got a yes, I got a yes.
Yes.
Yes. I got a yes, I got a yes. Okay. Derek, you can hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
There he is.
Okay.
Hey.
Darby doesn't need to hear me. Okay, so we got to the bottom of some of what we're wanting to do technically today. To start the show, when you guys come into the room, you're going to turn your video when you like in pre-show. As soon as you arrive, actually, you're going to turn your video off. You're going to mute your video, mute your audio. That's when you log in to the meeting. So tomorrow during pre-show at 7, you'll arrive. You'll mute your video. Then you're going to open up your audio settings, and Brooke is going to tell you whether or not you're going to take a picture of your audio settings, and you're going to either send it to me or Brooke, and Brooke will tell you who to send it to. We'll check your settings, send it back to you whether it's okay, or we'll draw on your picture and send it back to you with whatever corrections need to be made. Then top of the show, Michael's going to be playing pre-show music, and there's going to be a couple of cards rotating in a slideshow that Brooke has put together. When we get the countdown and Brooke says go, John, you'll turn your audio on and start introducing the show. Brooke will open us all up. When Brooke says go, we're all going to turn our videos back on with the lights underneath us. Then we're going to all appear in the screen with the light underneath us, and she's going to start gradually turning your video back off as part of the pre-show. Okay. Then that'll, at that point, John will kick into the first story and we'll be going. All right. Basically, the reverse is going to happen. We'll rinse and repeat at the end of the show for the closing credits. Okay. So your video will be turned on before your segment. And then once we get to the end of the show, John will start doing the salutations and the sign off, and we'll all appear again as a group, and we'll have under lights, and that'll be the closing number. Brooke will make everybody disappear until she starts a slideshow with the credits and a thank you message. Okay.
I do have a question.
Yes.
And it just literally went out of my head as soon as I opened my mouth.
Okay. If you think of it again, let me know.
Okay, so we're coming in with our video off and she's going to be in charge of turning our video on and off throughout the show then, correct?
So theoretically, yeah, there's a little hitch in that though, and that is that all she can do to turn it back on is ask you to turn it back on.
Okay.
You're going to have to be prepared to turn your video back on, but that's kind of also going to be your cue to be like, oh, it's my turn to go. John's, you're gonna be doing the most of that toggling, because you might be in the middle of a story. She might toggle your video off, and then later on in that story send you a request to turn your video back on in advance of your cue or in the middle of your cue, just to kind of keep things from looking like a solo talking head throughout the storytelling. So you kind of have the most to deal with. But yes, everybody is responsible for turning on your own audio and video when the times are appropriate.
You're going to send us in notes, correct?
Yes, how will Brooke let us know?
So what she'll do is, I mean, we can give you an example, like I mean, if you want to, everybody can just turn off your video now, and Brooke can just send you a request to turn it back on. You'll see exactly what it looks like. So everybody go, and then Brooke just send everybody a request. Got it? So does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
And then if you're following along in the script, you'll know whether or not you also need to have your audio on at that point. Okay. So
And
we're
we
just
turn
kind of,
our own, we turn our audio on ourselves?
as far as I know, Brooke doesn't have control of that either. So,
Okay.
Nope, I can't
um,
do that.
huh?
I can't. I can just ask you to turn on your video, but I can't do your audio for you.
Okay, so she can't, all she can do is ask you to unmute and ask you to turn on video. So you just kind of all just be
Okay.
cognizant of where we are in the show, whether or not your audio needs to be on. Oh, we're missing Ione. Oh no, she's right there. Sorry.
I see.
Sorry. I was going in running order, and I thought Tim was over there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then okay, so everybody's here. All right. So
About
everybody
a,
gets all that. Why don't we get a run through, and then we'll plan on starting the show at the top of hit the top of the show at 8 o'clock. So Brooke can practice. Hang on, I gotta see your hand up, Chris. Hang on just a second. So we're gonna plan on starting at the top of the show at 8 o'clock. So whatever time we have between now and then, we'll spend running pre-show, getting the live setup, and then answering questions. Chris, yes, you have a question?
Yes. So we log on, mute ourselves, audio and video, and then you said something about take a screenshot of our audio settings. Is that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, actually, just with a picture on your phone. So, like when you log in, you'll open up your audio settings, like as if you were going to adjust them. You're going to get them where you want them, and then just snap a picture of what you've got there, and then go to the advanced screen and snap a picture again. And then you'll just text that picture to whoever Brooke tells you to text it to.
Okay. Okay.
Which will be either myself or her, but we're each going to be responsible for a part of the cast so that the process is shortened.
Gotcha.
So if there are no more questions, everybody go ahead and mute your audio and video and just kind of stand by, and we're going to run the top of the show. Brooke, if you'll send me the YouTube live link, I'll get out of your way. All questions are going to have to go to Brooke at this point because I'm not going to be here. So she's the boss, and I have no control.
Where are you going to be?
Have a good run through. I'm going to be watching you guys on the YouTube stream and taking notes.
How do you turn on the chat? I don't see it on the screen.
I turned off the chat. I disabled it.
Okay, how are we going to know that we'll get any communication from Brooke? None? Only the turning on and off of the... Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in your case, Michael, I mean, you can basically be texting, right?
If you want to do it that way.
Yeah, I think for your cues, you could just text. Everybody else's cues, it makes sense to have them just come through Zoom. But yours, and yeah, I mean, you're pretty much, your microphone's pretty much, or your audio line is going to be pretty much on throughout the show. Hey, Cosette, that's really loud.
Right. So we have intro music that goes to exactly 8 o'clock and it stops. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, just whenever the top of the show is, whatever your pre-show music is. If you can make it last that long, great. If you have to stop for 30 seconds and kind of start over or something, that's fine too. I'm not gonna.
Well, at this point, it's going to be songs that I wrote. They're going to be MP3 files. So, well.
Oh, so you're not live playing the pre-show?
Not at this point.
Yeah, I would just fade it out on just whenever Brooke, are you okay to send Michael a text message on when to fade out and move to the next thing?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. All right. As soon as I get that link from you, I'll jump off of here and hop onto that.
I sent it to you already.
Okay, cool. All right, you guys have a good show.
Thanks.
I'll hop back in at the end.
Am I just jumping in over this music?
No, we don't. We're not going to stop the top of the show until 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry I missed that.
No, you're good. You share screen though. Cut off.
Alexa, turn on John's lamp.
Hello, hello. All right, we have a problem. You hear how the audio is, the voice is stepping on the background?
Yes. Hold 1 second. Okay.
Still doing it.
Okay, 1 second. Now, yeah, if I try to screen share, it's not going to have you play the music.
As soon as you screen share, it cuts off my background.
Yep. Okay, I
Oh.
sent a text. Hold on. I did, but okay. I have it set as that. No.
Even virtually, Tech Week is Tech Week.
I have it set though for multiple people to share. How do I? Okay.
I'm getting a message, and the message says you cannot share your computer sound while other participants are sharing screen.
Same, and I had it checked off for multiple participants can share simultaneously, so I don't understand what that means. Okay, well, he just says we'll have to deal with it tonight and fix it tomorrow. So
Dealing with it means not playing music, which is fine. I mean, we're cool with that. I'm cool with that.
okay, I'll just share this for now then, I guess, and we'll go at the top of the show when it's 8 o'clock.
There you go. I'll tell you what. I'll keep trying, but at this point, there's no.
Yeah, I understand.
But you're sharing right now, so it doesn't matter. There's no way for me to have audio.
No,
So
I can stop sharing if you want to keep playing the music.
why don't you stop for just a minute and see if we can fix it?
Okay. Okay, done.
I'm going to try to share again here. Yeah, it's still doing it. So, no music tonight then.
Okay.
We'll work on it some whenever next opportunity, and we can make sure we collect the configurations requiring to do it. So everybody have a good show.
Thank you.
Right.
Sorry.
No worries.
John, that's when you would begin your introduction.
Sorry, guys. I didn't know I was muted.
Yep.
I was looking for the correct script, which I did not have. And so there's going to be music. What's my cue?
The music should fade out, I think. We'll have to figure out the music because I can't screen share and do the music at the same time, so that we'll have to worry about that tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll just simply fade the music seconds before the start of the show.
And the fading of the music is my cue.
Yeah, and then I'll have everybody come on, or I'll ping everybody to turn on their video, and then you'll.
Got it. Yeah. Start as soon as I start my video.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Do we want to try that one more time? Everybody video off or do just go?
Just go.
Okay. Good evening and welcome. Welcome to the circle. A circle not unlike some you have found yourself in before, around a campfire, at a sleepover as a child, after a funeral with family and loved ones. This is a circle where we will share stories that chill us to the bone and sometimes give comfort from the great beyond. This is the circle where we share our deepest fears and spookiest encounters, and then we pass the flashlight. I'm your host, John Burns. Tonight we have a set of stories in 3 acts. Act 1, mysteries. Act 2, mothers. And Act 3, fathers. So, sit back, wrap yourself in a cozy blanket with a warm drink to guard against the spirits as we pass the flashlight. Act 1, mysteries. Sometimes in our lives we experience things we just can't explain. These events can be confusing, curious, or downright terrifying. Other times, the explanation is as normal as a clock striking midnight. Let's begin our first story. When you visit a ghost town, do you really expect a ghost? Probably not. It's more than likely you'll find yourself nothing but a couple of dusty streets, a handful of abandoned buildings, and 1 or 2 nice vacation photos to take home with you. But when you visit a ghost town and your experience prompts you to vow that you will never, ever go there again, why would you go back? This is Chris. Her story spans several decades. She'll take us to the point where this story begins.
When I was in my late 20s, my husband and I took a vacation in New Mexico, and we found ourselves in the little ghost town of Lincoln. There was an old courthouse, unused now, some empty storefronts, a couple of falling down houses, not much else. There was one, it was privately owned museum that was housed in an old dry goods store. So that's where we went. It was creepy. Behind the building in the open space, there was a gallows, a real one. And inside the building, on one of the old store counters, there was this big straw woven basket thing that was about the size and shape of a human body. And it had a lid. They used it to take the bodies from the gallows to the cemetery, and then they could use the basket again. Yeah, it was really creepy. My husband and I were very, very religious at the time, and we talked about it. We agreed that we could palpably feel the evil in this town, and that as people of faith, we had no business being there. We were accustomed to seeing demons behind every bush. So we decided to leave and never go back. So we left.
Fast forward 20 years. Chris is no longer as religious as she once was. She no longer is married as she once was, and she's starting a new life with a new partner named Ben. When it became clear that they were right for each other, they rented an old house in an old part of Austin, Texas, a house furnished with a complimentary ghost.
Ben and I lived in that house for a year. And about every 2 months, we would have an unexpected visitation. My grown children encountered the ghost. Their significant others encountered the ghost. I did. Ben didn't. There was an apartment downstairs in the basement, and our landlord's son lived there. So one day I asked him if any other tenants had ever asked him about the ghost. He said, "No, but if there is a ghost, it's my grandfather and he won't hurt you." Well, he was right about that. The ghost loved food, loved music, loved Christmas. I think he just wanted to be around whatever was happening. But there was this one beautiful spring afternoon when I was standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes. Ben was outside washing his car, and someone touched me on the shoulder and then whispered something in my ear. Thinking it was Ben trying to scare me, I whipped around and said, "I hate it when you do that." But Ben wasn't there. And since I could see no one, I knew who it was. By this time, I felt like I knew him well enough to have a little chat with him. So I sort of chewed him out. I said, "Look, I know that you were here before we got here. You're going to be here after we leave. But you got to stop scaring us, because eventually somebody is going to get hurt. And it's not going to be you because you're dead. So if you want to hang out, just rattle that tambourine hanging on the living room wall. We'll know it's you. Everything is cool." Unfortunately, before the next 2 months went by and we had another visit, his son, our landlord, died unexpectedly, and we had to move away from that house. I was bummed. I wanted to hear that tambourine rattle.
So Chris missed the opportunity to have any more interactions with that ghost. But a few years later, Chris and Ben decided to take a vacation in New Mexico. Once again, Chris found herself just a short drive from Lincoln.
Ben and I rented a motel room in Capitan, New Mexico, which is between Ruidoso and Lincoln. And on our first evening there, I told Ben I felt like driving over to Lincoln to take some sunset photos, asked him if he'd like to go along. The NBA finals were on TV that night, so he opted to stay at the motel, and I went over to take pictures. No problem. He'd be doing what he wanted to do. I was doing what I wanted to do. It would be great.
As it turns out, there were a lot of things Chris didn't know about Lincoln, New Mexico.
A lot of things.
She didn't know about the history of violence between the Mexicans and the Native Americans before the white people got there. She had never thought about how much the whites had hated the Mexicans and the natives. She didn't know about the traumatized Civil War veterans from both the North and the South that moved out west, trying to start a new life, bringing their trauma with them.
I knew none of that.
And she had no idea about the Irishman and the Englishman.
On my drive over to Lincoln, I thought back to how unnerving my first visit had been, and I just kind of shook my head and wrote it off to the religious fervor of youth. Besides, I had lived with a ghost for a year. It was no big deal. And now, the state of New Mexico runs the city of Lincoln like a state historical site. There's nothing to be afraid of. So I drove into town, down the one main paved road that's there, parked on the east end, and locked my car. I don't know why. I was the only person there. The town was closed for the day. My plan was to take my camera and walk west toward the sunset on that side of the street and take pictures. And then when I got as far west as the town went, I would cross over down by the courthouse and then photograph my way back to the car.
The Irishman, Lawrence Murphy, was co-owner of the dry goods store there in Lincoln. He also held the lucrative beef contract with the U.S. Army stationed at nearby Fort Stanton. Life was good for Murphy until an Englishman, John Tunstall, moved to town and decided that Lincoln could use another dry goods store. And also, he wanted a piece of that beef contract. We all know how well the Irish and the English have gotten along over the centuries. This did not end well. Chris didn't know also that Murphy bought himself a gang of hired guns, the Jesse Evans gang. Tunstall followed suit by hiring the Lincoln County regulators, one of whom was a young man named William Bonney, also known as Billy the Kid. The deadly feud between Murphy and Tunstall lasted for 3 years and is known in the history books as the Lincoln County War. There were systematic murderous ambushes that took place in the untamed land around Lincoln, revenge killings, gunfights in the street. And it didn't involve just those two men. Ranchers were caught in the middle, and the ones with large beef operations, like John Chisholm, had to hire guns to protect their interests as well.
I hadn't gone, but maybe the equivalent of a block or so, when I started experiencing this dark, heavy feeling that I was being watched, that I wasn't welcome there, that I was trespassing. I turned to look and see if anyone was behind me. What I saw was 3 young men leaning against my car. Now, I know this is going to sound strange, but I could not tell whether these were locals, which it could have been, or whether they were from the past. I mean, just a minute earlier, I had been the only person there. I don't know where they came from. But I knew that I had to go on. I simply could not go back to my car. So I kept walking toward the sunset, and with each step, the feeling of raw malice toward me just kept increasing. I never felt so vulnerable, so exposed. My legs were heavy, my heart was pounding, my brain was trying to find an escape route and not finding one at all. So I turned to look at the car again. 2 of the guys had left. There was one still standing there leaning against my car watching me. I had to keep walking. The heaviness got heavier. I felt enveloped in a cloud of hatred and hostility. I wondered if maybe it would be better on the other side of the street. I wondered if maybe I should just abort my mission and go back to the motel, if I could get to my car. So I crossed over. better on this side of the street. In fact, it was worse. If malevolence could feel loud, then this was deafening. But I could see my car, and it was unattended. I instinctively knew not to run. I felt like it would be running from a wild animal. If I ran, I would be chased down and injured or worse. So I walked with very focused intention.
The Lincoln County War finally culminated in a 5-day gunfight and siege, right down to the very street in Lincoln that Chris was walking on. It only ended when the U.S. Army finally brought cannons over from Fort Stanton. Lots of people died. Many were shot. Some were burned alive. There was no winner.
The sunset was fading to twilight as I drove the 10 miles back to Capitan. And when I got to the motel, Ben's first words to me were, "Are you okay?" Which, of course, translates to, "You look like you've seen a ghost." Yeah. The next day, the two of us drove back to Lincoln in broad daylight when the museums were open and there were park rangers on duty. I wanted to learn more about this town and why it felt so dangerous and so dark. And I needed some sort of validation about the terror I had felt the night before. We toured the courthouse first, climbed the steps where Billy the Kid killed 2 sheriff's deputies one day when he was breaking out of jail. We saw the bullet holes in the wall. We saw his cell. We saw the courtroom where he would have been tried had he not escaped. Ben and I traveled through museums at a different pace from each other. He wanted to poke around some more, so I went downstairs to the lobby. And I asked the park ranger on duty, I asked her point blank, "Is Lincoln haunted?" She gave me a really non-committal answer like, "Oh, a lot of people seem to think so." So I told her what I had experienced the evening before. She relaxed and she said, "Yeah," she said, "I say hello to them every morning when I come into work, and I say goodnight to them in the evenings when I leave. They trust me now. They know I'm here to protect their space. They don't bother me anymore." Later on that afternoon, I met another ranger outdoors, and I stopped to ask her a few questions about the town. Turns out she had lived there as a child. She knew a lot about it, a lot of the history. We talked for a while, and I ended up telling her about my experience at sunset the previous day. Her face made this sudden change from friendly, chatty park ranger to dead serious. "Oh, honey," she said, "you don't want to be here at sunset." I needed no more validation. I cannot explain any of this. I can't explain the people leaning against my car. I can't explain the feeling of danger and violence that I was feeling. I can't explain what I saw in some of the photographs when I finally uploaded them to my computer. I can't explain why that first trip to Lincoln gave me a hint of the unresolved hatred and violence in this town. The best I could do was to read everything I could find about Lincoln. And I had to understand that the events that happened there happened in real life to real people. And when I thought about the fear that I had felt, I felt like I was a target. I got a glimmer of how they must have felt every single day. Their weapons at the ready in a kill or be killed world. And then at the end of the war, at least for the ones that survived, maybe for the ones who died, I don't know. But at the end of the war, knowing that they hadn't won anything, everyone had lost. There was no closure, just chaos.
It's been 142 years since the first shot was fired in the Lincoln County War. It seems safe to surmise that what started then was the genesis of what happens now, every night at sunset. And while some mysteries always go unexplained, others have a very clear explanation, as unnerving as the experience might be. This is Derek.
Hey.
So when Derek was growing up, his dad was a pilot and mechanic. His career moved the family around many times for work.
Yeah. He moved from Missouri to Alaska and eventually Oklahoma. He had a dream of opening up an airport in a really small country town in Oklahoma called Webbers Falls.
When Derek's father left the country for work, the land was used as a farm. Soy, wheat, corn, 100 acres. And that's where Derek's story begins.
During this time, my mom was going to college in Tahlequah for a career change. She was about an hour away from home. My brother played sports, particularly baseball. My sister was about 15, 16. She was a bit of a 80s hair metal troublemaker. And she split time between our farm and our grandparents' place in Muskogee. So, where my story starts, I was in about the 4th grade, about 8 or 9. I was an adventuresome little dude, kind of like Dennis the Menace, blonde hair. I was all of about 4'8" with a huge farm to myself. I was very imaginative. 100 acres with 2 ponds and no neighbors in the late 80s meant I was often playing on my own, so I was pretty used to not seeing family for hours at a time. It was a great childhood. So, living out in the middle of nowhere, my dad, he made sure that we had a few rifles for hunting and for safety. Dad taught us all gun safety, and he'd already showed me how to load and fire a gun and target shoot because, come on, this is Oklahoma, hours away from any big city. It was perfectly normal, considering. Both of my parents, really smart, had master's degrees. My mom used to be a teacher. They both taught me to discern reality and fantasy with a fairly skeptical eye. But sometimes, when you're alone, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by 100 acres of thick, dense cornfield, and you hear a voice outside, what do you do when the nearest person should be miles away? That night, I was in the living room of our little farm home. 1 floor, 3 rooms, 2 exits on opposite sides that both faced the same direction. I was probably making shadow puppets or inventing some wacky thing like I was prone to do. But then, I heard it. A voice saying, I couldn't make it out. But was it some animal, a dog? I turned off absolutely anything that could make noise and sat in silence, just to be sure. It started soft at first, but it slowly built up, this second noise. Yeah, I don't quite know how to describe it. It was a dry moan, distant yell, something. I don't know. But I could tell where it was coming from, maybe 30 yards from the front door, directly in the middle of that cornfield. I looked outside, out into that field, nighttime. It was dark. That night was lit only by the moon, covered in clouds. I have never had great night vision, and the low light with zero light pollution meant it was almost impossible to adjust near pitch black. And I swear, I saw the shape of someone in that field, just standing there.
A dark figure in the middle of a cornfield at night. Normally, a child would feel something like scared, terrified.
No. Maybe because I had no one to lean on, I felt more of a resolve to make sure I protected myself. Was I worried? Yes, I had to do something. That's how I felt. I went into the closet where we kept our guns. I took out a huge old-school police-style metal flashlight, the one with like D batteries. I carefully took out and loaded one of our 22s. Shining that flashlight out into the field only made all the shadows more imposing and hard to see. Even with that light, I was absolutely not going out into that field. Me, being all of about 4'8", I used my most serious, booming little kid voice that I could muster and made this yell out into the world. You better get out of here! I have a gun! Sounds funny, but I was serious. I took that gun and I fired that rifle out into the air. Then I waited for what felt like hours. All night I could not move. I stared into those hidden dark rows of corn. But as I stared, there was no movement. No blinking. I swear my ears have never been attuned to the sounds of a nighttime farm. Crickets, frogs, but no other voices. I don't know if or when this person left, or if there was even a person at all. Eventually, I figured my mind must have been playing tricks on me. When your senses are heightened, any sights and sounds can sometimes trick your mind into seeing something or someone out into the field. Or especially with the kind of terrible night vision I had. So I locked up the gun again and went to bed. No more sounds happened, and eventually my mom and brother came home. The next day, I was terrified to tell my parents that I'd fired any kind of a gun, all because I got worked up over what was, probably a wild dog or nothing.
So, unknown voice in the middle of the cornfield, maybe a dark figure, total unknown at this point, but there's more. About a week later.
I don't know. I must have had a bad dream as a kid, and so I went to sleep in my parents' bedroom. My mom and dad were there. I remember trying to fall asleep for a while, but it was really hard to do that because my dad, he was really good at snoring. They could both sleep through just about anything. So when I rolled over to my side to get a little bit more comfortable, I noticed that their sliding closet was open. And at that moment, in the dark, I could swear I saw someone just standing there. For a moment, I was wide-eyed and my heart just started beating like crazy. But this little logical part of my brain kicked in just to remind me that I do have terrible night vision. I constantly seem to see things in the dark, things that just don't exist. So I blinked. This time I wasn't alone. I had no one to be afraid of. I had all of my family there. Both of my parents were there to protect me. So I calmed down. I mean, come on, it was just a code or something. Just another trick of my brain. Back to sleep. Oh, great news. No one was murdered, no scary voices. I moved on with my life, and I kept all that imaginary stuff to myself.
Okay, so at this point, Derek has had these two terrifying encounters and still no explanation.
But 2 months later, I finally ended up confiding with my sister about firing a rifle at some, crazy imaginary cornfield murderers. I mean, come on, how could I keep something like that to myself? It was then that my sister took a deep sigh and looked at me with a kind of mortified smirk and said, "Oh, I know." What? You see, there's only a few things you can actually do for fun in an incredibly rural farming community in the 80s, and one of them happened to be going to house parties. Apparently, one of her friends had parked far enough away to sneak up and head out with my sister, and apparently they had done that before, but my sister was not there that night. I mean, come on, it was the 80s, man. No cell phones. He didn't know. So instead of getting her attention, he got mine. And a gun. That guy ended up laying in a field for hours, petrified he would get shot by me if he made even a single sound. Apparently, up to that point, both my sister and I had both kept a secret, hoping not to get caught. Oh, and also, that dude in the closet I thought I saw in the dark, also her friend caught mid-sneak and trapped until 4 a.m. in that sliding closet. I'm not sure if there's a lesson to be learned from learning that truth. My gut, my history of terrible night vision, logical, skeptical brain, they all clashed hard during those nights as a kid. As an adult, though, I'm not one to think some shadow behind me is a ghost or a creature from some alternate dimension. But maybe it might not just be in your mind. It might really be someone or something in the dark.
So there we have it, folks. Sometimes the things that go bump in the night are simply a couple of teenagers looking to go bump in the night. In our next story, we head back to New Mexico. The rarefied air of the 7,000-foot elevation in Santa Fe, New Mexico has a lot to do with the incomparable blue sky. The romance of the wide New Mexican sky is a special treasure for the residents of the land of enchantment. This is Susan.
Hello.
And she'll tell us a little bit about what those enchanting skies can hold.
I ran away to New Mexico after a painful divorce. I lived there from 1992 to 2004, and it was a magical time of personal and professional growth. I was divorced for probably about 5 years by the time of this event, and I was ready to dip my toe back into the dating pool. So a friend of mine introduced me to a person of note, a gentleman of note in Santa Fe. He had the qualities I look for most in a man. He was funny and intelligent, and he had a heartbeat. But he wasn't the kind of guy I usually go for. And now I know that may make me sound shallow, but I liked him, and I was willing to give it a shot. I had finally grown up, learned a little more about who I was and what I wanted after foundering through a few more failed romances, and I was ready for an adult relationship. Early on, my companion invited me to a dude ranch. Now, that may not sound exciting to you, but I was a tour and meeting planner for northern New Mexico. So I was excited to see someplace that I might possibly be able to book. And of course, there was the romantic possibilities as well. We arrived at the Dude Ranch on a secluded piece of land and along a creek and deep in the forest. The owners were deferential to us, my companion being someone who could promote their business to the general public. Well, they didn't know me, so I was able to have the experience anonymously, and it was a lovely experience. We went hiking along tree-lined paths, dappled with autumn leaves. The aspen trees had just taken on their storied hue of gold, and the leaves sort of whispered secrets that we were soon to discover. In the afternoon, we took a clip-cloppy horseback ride along the edge of a creek, high above the creek, and it was a little bit scary, but we loved it, and the air was crisp with the coming autumn and incipient winter. Later, we played a few indoor games. Ping pong and darts, I think. And then we tucked into the standard Dude Ranch dinner of, steak and biscuits and that sort of thing. It was time to cap off the evening with one last hike after our very enjoyable day. So we went for a walk in the woods in the pink alpine glow that is really unique to the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I mean, how much more romantic could you get than that? We walked a little bit till we found a bench, and the bench was on a trail in between two cliffs that formed sort of a V-shaped valley. And at the end of the valley, we watched the sunset. It was a very painterly Santa Fe sunset that went from pink gold to a striated turquoise to teal and on into inky black night. We sat on the bench and talked. We had a lot to talk about. I mean, it was a new relationship, and we were still in the exploratory stages of learning about each other's past histories, our likes and dislikes, and our dreams for the future. The bench that we sat on, as I said, was in a valley, and as we watched the sunset, the sky changed overhead, and the moon appeared. And that added, of course, another touch of romance. And the stars began to pop out of the sky, and they looked like glass beads that were so close you could pick them and put them in your pocket. It was in this supremely romantic setting that I'm sure there was a little bit of canoodling going on. Zip! All of a sudden, a brilliant white light appeared at the and Valia, I mean, unhumanly fast and unthinkably bright. It hovered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds and then disappeared as suddenly as it had arrived. Oh, my mind ran wild. What was it? Was it man-made? Was it military? There were no nearby bases, but there were stories of secret military installations in northern New Mexico. Or was it possible? Was it just possible that there was nothing human about this at all? We got quiet. We got very quiet. We were shrouded in silence. The moon seemed to darken and the stars winked out, and neither of us spoke, our eyes riveted to the spot where the object had appeared. Did you see that? Asked my companion. He replied, I didn't see anything. And I responded, neither did I. And we never spoke of it again.
Okay, I want to just jump in here and make sure I understand this correctly. This brilliant, mysterious light appears and sits there, hovers there for 5, 6 seconds, and then disappears into the new all-consuming silence you describe. And you both immediately deny this happened?
Oh, I knew he had seen it. Otherwise, I mean, why would he have denied something? Why wouldn't he have said,
So even, I'm sorry, in the moment, you were consciously attempting to unsee the thing you had both clearly seen.
well, I mean, perhaps that night was too much for either of us to deal with, but the relationship never progressed beyond that weekend. Oh, and I discovered that I was his rebound girl after an ultimatum from his previous girlfriend. So much for my imagined romantic getaway.
So it was a life-changing evening in more ways than one.
I always wondered, were we both afraid that if we continued forward, we would eventually have to deal with what we had seen that night? Or maybe commit to something that we both knew just wasn't quite right. But something that has never changed in all that time since. I really wish I knew what had happened on that starry New Mexico night.
Well, I'm willing to bet that this wasn't the first relationship, nor would it be the last that had cold water suddenly thrown on it by an unidentified flying object. This concludes Act 1. Grab a snack, run to the restroom, and resituate yourselves. We'll resume in 5 minutes. Are we going to take 5, Brooke?
Yes. Take 5.
I'm going to try some tests with the audio, see if I can get something to work.
Okay.
Well, I guess it doesn't really matter as long as you're sharing. But yeah.
I'll stop it.
Okay, please do, just to see if we can fix the part where the voice steps on the music.
Okay.
Okay, so it says that I'm sharing right now.
Yes.
I can hear music. So I'm going to just share
Yes.
some canned music real quick, and that way we'll have a steady stream, and I'll talk over it and see what happens.
Okay. Need to get.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Brooke, can you talk? And
Yes.
there you go. Try it.
Hello, hello, hello. Simple past tense, simple future tense, progressive present tense, simple tense.
This is the end,
Progressive.
beautiful friend.
Yeah, really. It appears to be working now. All that I did was on my laptop turned on original sound,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how that matters, but we'll give it a shot at the start of the act. Again, I need to. I will be muting my voice and on the laptop, and then playing through the PC. Okay, so is that relatively high, loud?
Fun me.
Okay. John, you want to talk over that?
Yeah. Do you want me to just go into act two?
Just fill the air with your voice.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was walking down the street, and a family of frogs crossed in front of me. Mommy frog, daddy frog, and 3 baby frogs.
I'm okay. It seems to be working fine now.
Sounds good to me.
All righty.
I don't hear any cutting out.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it appears to be working. All right, so we need to figure out the sharing of the computer screen thing, but the audio seemed to be working. So I'm back in on Act 2.
All right, give us some spooky tunes.
I'll do my spookiest.
So you're gonna play me in on act 2?
Well, there'll be a song, yes.
Yeah, there's a song in the intermission, I guess, right?
There is.
Yeah, there's a song
Okay,
and then
got it.
John and it says John and Michael will give first warning and second warning, and then we'll go into John's introduction for the second act.
All right. Brooke, you want me to just jump in? Are we ready?
We still have. Oh wait, yeah, okay. Let me get the video. Okay, and let's go.
Welcome back. I'm your host again, John Burns. In Act 2, we turn our attention to the power of mothers, mother's intuition, mother's protective nature, and the divination that mothers transfer to their children. So let's continue passing the flashlight and begin Act 2. Darby is an Oklahoma native who moved to New York City 9 years ago, only to be displaced during the pandemic.
I'd been working in the city for nearly a decade, and I was doing well for myself, working solely as a freelance artist. That is until COVID hit, and much like millions of others, I lost my job and was unable to pay my rent. My partner and I were forced to move out of the city in search of another option. While we were browsing Craigslist, we saw this ad, seeking couple for live-on farming property management. We didn't know too much about the situation or the property, and we certainly weren't qualified for the job, but what the heck. We should just go for it. We joked that we could get murdered as soon as we moved in, but honestly, the situation was too good to pass up.
Darby and Oliver jumped at the chance. Work and housing with no commute. This was too good of an opportunity to pass up, and somehow these two city kids with no farming or management experience got the job. So they pack up everything they have and their 2 cat children and head upstate to the Hudson Valley with no idea of what awaits them.
Growing up in Oklahoma, which is a relatively young state, I guess it never really occurred to me how much history there was throughout the rest of the country. Now, we're only talking colonial history here. Like, the buildings and the properties around this part of the country are so old, it's hard for me to believe sometimes. The home is this gorgeously refurbished property built in the 1840s. Downstairs is this massive 6-bedroom, 2-kitchen household that I think used to be a horse barn. Our little apartment, which was under construction when we moved in, was upstairs, sitting above the 2 bedrooms in the west wing of the house. While they were finishing the update of our little upstairs studio space, we were sleeping in one of the bedrooms directly below it. When I described it to friends, they would ask me, "So, do you think it's haunted?" No, absolutely not. Not because I don't believe that sort of stuff. Trust me, I do. I've experienced enough to write a deep book about it, but it just didn't seem haunted. I don't know. It was bright. The walls were this charming eggshell blue. It just didn't have the vibe of being haunted, like, at all. Okay, so one thing you do need to know about our new boss/landlord, Charles, is that he likes to randomly wander onto parts of the property, like, regardless of time of day, regardless of who may be there. So, like, there were several times where we would find him just, like, sitting in our part of the house, just staring out the window. Pretty weird. Rather off-putting, to be honest. Well, so, all of this was the global pandemic, along with the invasion of space by our new overlord. Like, it was just really taking an emotional toll on us. But really, the move really took a toll on our cat, Becky, during the brunt of the emotional burden, definitely. Ever since we moved to the house, she's acting out of sorts. I don't know, she's usually like a really chill and elegant woman. I mean, we call her the queen. But since we moved upstate, she became, well, the only word I can describe it is frantic. to lick and scratch and bite herself, like literally, and developing sores all over her body. Like she was losing fur on her arms and her legs and her belly, like her face, her ears, literally everything. And like we had tests done, we tried CBD, we tried and we had a cat behaviorist, like literally nothing else. It was really difficult to see myself like that and have no way to help her.
While they tried to settle into their new routine, Darby's feelings changed. And now she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about their new home.
Times where we were reading in bed and Ollie would be like, I don't know, brushing his teeth or something, like in a different room, and I would hear someone say something. And so I would call out, sorry, what? And Ollie would respond, what? Sorry? And then it would kind of turn into a joke, like we'd riff off each other, like, what? What? What'd you say? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. This kind of happened a few times, and finally he was like, seriously though, what'd you say? I heard you say something. But I never said anything. I don't know. It was weird, like, I guess it didn't really register to me. Like, I'm always hearing voices, like, I count it more to my ADD, not like spirits or anything, just like active. But Ollie always seemed a little freaked out by it. Now, this is a guy who, whenever he would hear about ghosts or aliens or chakras or horoscopes or anything, his response would be, "Ooh." Like, he does not believe in the supernatural of any sort. So, it just really took him by surprise. One night, we had gone to bed early. You know, we were both exhausted from doing 9 hours of farm work, so I passed out almost immediately. For some reason, I woke up around like 2 or 3 in the morning. Like, nothing in particular woke me up, rather like my eyes just shot open. Oliver was laying next to me, he was reading a book, and Becky was right in between us. She was doing her usual routine of self-mutilation, you know, like the frantic gnawing at herself. I tried to soothe her, I pet her, I tried to distract her, and as per usual, nothing worked. So I rolled over and I tried to go back to sleep. I'm tossing a little, you know, trying to get cozy, and all of a sudden, we just hear this. You know, like the way you would calm a fussy baby. I don't know. I get a little annoyed, and I'm just like, Oliver, are you shushing me? He says, no, I thought you were shushing me. My stomach dropped. Later, telling this story to my friends again, they asked me, like, was it the trees or the wind outside? No. No way. I mean, like, it sounded like it was coming from the bed, like it was right next to me. I mean, I thought it was Ollie, for Christ's sake, and he thought it was me. There's no way that that sound was coming from outside the window, and it was such a distant, familiar rhythm. I mean, anybody who's ever held a baby has made that sound. Anyway, we would hear that sound, not so distant or clear, but we would hear it from time to time. And like, as eerie as it was, I kind of got used to it. It wasn't a scary sound by any means, like, other than the fact that it was a disembodied human sound coming from the house. But I mean, objectively, it was rather soothing.
So Darby and her family gradually became accustomed to their well-meaning roommate. And then one night,
We had just finished watching a movie in bed, and we're lying there, you know, talking about what we'd just seen, and all of a sudden I hear some movement coming from our little apartment upstairs, which is almost done with construction, by the way. I don't know, must be a squirrel. And then we hear this distant, and then suddenly we hear, three distinct heavy boot steps directly above us. can't say exactly why, but this feeling of sheer terror came over me. I remember looking at the time and it says 11:57. I'm thinking, is Charles up there checking out the apartment? What the fuck? What a weird time to be up there. I don't know. I got unreasonably angry at this thought, probably because I was scared, but the thing is, there were no other sounds. We just froze, waiting and waiting and waiting. We had never heard anybody enter the apartment and never heard anybody leave. Just those three steps. And this was so unlike the shushing. We talked about it, and it felt distinctly masculine and distinctly menacing. Like, all the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and we heard these boot steps, and for whatever reason, we were terrified. It wasn't until a couple of weeks later, when we were hiking around the property, that we happened upon a cemetery. The cemetery itself was this hauntingly gorgeous place. It was surrounded by wildflowers, and there were about 30 to 40 graves, you know, all jutting out at like different angles, some broken in half, some that were so worn down you couldn't even read them. The ones that you could read were from the early 1800s, all from this family called the Wagars. We did find one grave for a young woman named Sarah Wagar. It read, died in childbirth, 1828 to 1854. She was only 26, younger than me. I don't know why, but I feel like she was the kind of presence that we experienced. I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like Sarah was not only trying to comfort us, but she was also trying to protect us. Also, upon further research, we found that there had been slaves on the property, and that the tiny upstairs room that was being turned into a quaint studio for two had previously been slave quarters, housing as many as 12 people at a time right above the cattle and the horses. And this is the exact place.
Oh my God. A ghost story still happening as we speak. Someone bring me my blankie and a whiskey. Now, on to our next story. Parenthood. Perhaps the scariest thing humans can go through. People who are often just listening to take care of themselves and maybe one another are suddenly thrust into the position of caring for an utterly helpless and independent young life. Terrifying. Any mistake you make seems like it can have ramifications for years, even generations to come. Everyone wants to do it perfectly, and no one ever does. Lori Carlson has a story about parenthood. Lori, were you the young woman who couldn't wait to start having babies?
Who, me? No. When John and I got married in 1986, we had a specific plan not to have kids. Nothing against kids. We just didn't think we were cut out to be parents.
But that changed.
Oh, yeah. In November of 1990, we found out I was pregnant. It was a huge surprise because I was on the pill. I was actually a little nervous to tell John about it. I wasn't sure he'd be happy.
So were your fears well-founded?
No, he was thrilled. His reaction was rom-com perfect. He hugged me, kissed me, got super protective of me. It was wonderful.
Lori and John were going to have that life-changing experience of parenthood, that awesome responsibility for a tiny life. But what if that little life comes to you with something else, something special, something inexplicable?
So even though it wasn't in our plan, I mean, how much do 20-somethings really plan anything? It suddenly felt important and right to have this baby. We chose to keep the news to ourselves for several reasons, but primarily, we wanted time to get used to the idea. And we wanted to make sure that nothing happened. Everyone knows that 3-month rule. Most of the time, if you make it to 3 months, you're going to make it till term. So the only ones who knew we were pregnant were the two of us.
You found out in November. I bet that made for a pretty special Christmas that year.
Yeah, Christmas celebrations in our family were done on Christmas Eve at my parents' house east of Claremore. And Christmas of 1990 was no different. We all had all the gang there, my brothers, the older with his wife and son, my little brother, my parents, and my maternal grandparents. So not a lot of people, but for us, it was a big family event. Now, John and I did toy with the idea of announcing our news. It kind of seemed like the perfect time. But again, we decided to keep it just to us for a few more days. So we ate all the food, we opened the presents, then we all complained about eating the food. Then my grandparents announced they were heading home. Now, this was earlier than usual, but no one really thought anything about it. John and I hung around a little bit longer, then decided we were going to drive back to Tulsa. There are two ways to get to Tulsa from where my folks live. The quickest way was to jump on the Will Rogers Turnpike, which is the way we always went. As we were heading up Highway 20 to the Turnpike gate, I told John that I wanted to go through town instead. He looked at me like I was crazy and said, "We never do that." But I insisted. As we passed the Turnpike gate, I saw the flashing lights of emergency vehicles by a motel just outside Claremore. I told John to slow down so I could see what was going on. He looked at me again, this time more with concern, and said, "We never do that." But I told him, "I need to see." And I did. I needed to. Because those lights were an ambulance, and sitting on the street was my grandfather's truck. My grandfather was a former cop and police chief, so I assumed he had stopped to help. We pulled in behind the truck, and I jumped out and ran to the driver's side. There was a woman I didn't know sitting in the driver's side of my grandfather's truck. That did not happen. No one drove that truck but him. That truck was his pride and joy. I peered in and saw my grandmother in the passenger side. I ran around to her and asked where Grandpa was. She said, "Oh, good, you're here. Grandpa's gone. He died. He pulled the truck over and he died. I know he did. He's in the ambulance. But I need you to call your mother. I can't remember her phone number or her last name." She said this all very matter-of-factly without tears. Now, my mother was her only child, and at this time had been married for at least 30, 35 years. But Grandma was in such shock, she couldn't remember what she needed to at that moment. So I went to the motel office, called my mom, and John drove Grandma to the hospital, and I followed in our truck. He had died. He had pulled over safely, one final act of protection for the wife he adored, and then he left.
That seems uncanny in and of itself. But you felt like you were at the epicenter of it all.
Well, the impulse to make those two decisions that put me right where my grandmother needed me to be were not just stray thoughts or something I wanted to do. They were imperative. There was this overwhelming feeling inside of me that I had to do those things. If John had tried to steer the truck to the turnpike, I'm fairly certain I would have shouted, "No!" and grabbed the wheel. That's how great the need to be there was in me. So who was telling me that? Was it my grandfather? Maybe. But I think it might have been that little life inside of me.
Hold on. There's more. Fast forward to early August 1991.
So we had our wonderful baby girl, probably the sweetest, most beautiful baby girl ever born. We were having the normal travails of new parents. She didn't want to nurse, but I was determined to breastfeed, so we were struggling with that. She didn't want to sleep through the night. In fact, she adamantly refused to settle or be comforted. After several nights of this, we were exhausted. John was a hero about taking his turn getting up with her, but our house was small and a crying baby would wake anyone up. Finally, as we were at the ends of our shared ropes, she seemed to settle down and we crawled back into bed. I was just starting to drift off when she started crying again. John and I both groaned. Then we heard it. Shh, little one. Mommy and Daddy need to rest. I sat straight up in the bed. John rolled out and ran to the baby's room. I was shaking all over, but I couldn't get out of the bed. John came back in, face drained white, and said, "She's fine. She's sound asleep, even smiling a bit." And but what? I heard, whose voice was that? And he said, "I think it was your grandfather." And he was right. Of course it was. Because somewhere in the cosmos, our little peanut-sized person-to-be had met her grandfather when he passed out of this world. And he stuck around to make sure she was okay. She still had some restless nights, but the worst of it was over after that one.
That's unbelievable. Would you say this was a God moment for you?
I'm not religious, neither is my husband. But maybe there is a universal green room of some kind, somewhere where the souls who have been briefly meet the souls yet to be and make a connection. I like to think so, because I know, had he gotten to know her, my grandfather would have adored our daughter.
So this might be a great place to end the story. It's a hell of a tale, as it is. Two souls tethered through time and space. But there's more. And this is where it turns toward the shocking.
Then again, maybe it was just my daughter. It's 1995, and my almost 4-year-old and I are in our little house near the fairgrounds in Tulsa, watching The Lion King on video and eating breakfast. She suddenly turned to me and said, "Mommy, what was that bang?" I hadn't heard anything, so I said, "What bang?" She said, "Mommy, it was a big bang." I didn't think anything of it. She gave me that look that all children do when their parents are being particularly obtuse, and went back to watching her movie. I checked the clock and noticed it was a little after 9, so I told her it was time for us to finish breakfast and get dressed for our day. We dressed, did dishes, and watched the rest of The Lion King, then Pinocchio, and colored and played until lunchtime. I decided to take her to McDonald's for lunch. Yeah, I'm that parent. So she could play a bit in their play place, and I could read and keep an eye on her. We got in the car, and I turned on the radio.
It's hard to say exactly what has happened at this point. There was definitely an explosion, and we have to assume from the destruction we see that there are injuries and quite possibly deaths. It's a horrific scene.
You see,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's me. The date was April 19th, 1995. And there was a big bang a little after 9 a.m. A terrifyingly big bang that killed 168 people and injured hundreds more at the Murrah Building in Oklahoma City, over 100 miles from our little house in Tulsa.
So maybe it was the little girl after all. So we move from the otherworldly intuition of a small child and into a story about the frightening divinations of a mother. This is Ione.
Hi there.
Ione's story is about her mother.
So my mother comes from a long line of medicine women.
Otherwise known as shaman by those from European descent. These strong women were healers to many on the Native American reservations. Women and men would travel miles to see her grandmother, seeking help from conceiving, sicknesses, all sorts of various ailments, including bad luck.
Yeah, she was very spiritual, very wise. So my mother was pretty young when my grandmother died. So the night before she passed, my mother had a dream. So she was standing in this open field with nothing for miles around, except for one single tree. And in this tree was perched a crow. And the crow whispered to my mother the name of her brother, Joseph. The next morning, my grandmother died unexpectedly from heart failure in her kitchen.
Okay, hold on. Take us back a bit, because there's a rich history of visions and how animals relate different meanings throughout much of non-Western culture, including indigenous peoples. What messages do crows normally confer?
Right. I know. In like Western culture, most people associate crows with death, maybe because of their color, or, I mean, they are often seen eating carrion, which is just a fancy word for rotting dead flesh. But like many Native Americans believe that, especially the tribes from the Great Plains, where my ancestors are from, they look at the crow as a symbol of wisdom or intuition. And some believe to have one cross your path in some way is actually like a sign of good fortune. But here's the thing. According to my ancestors, seeing one in your dream can take on a completely different connotation. It depends on like where the crow is in your dream, right? Like, is it following you? Is it flying? Is it staring at you? Like every detail allegedly has a meaning.
Damn it. Sorry.
It's all right.
Meaning. So, back to the story. A few years later, Ion's mother had the same dream again, except this time the crow whispered to her the name of her best friend.
Brenda. The next morning, her stepfather fell 7 flights from a construction site, and he died in the hospital. So here's the thing. This has been like a reoccurring dream for my mother, and every time it precedes somebody's death. But the crow always whispers the wrong name.
2 nights before Ione graduates from Temple University, her parents flew in from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Philadelphia.
So before they'd left Tulsa, my mother told me that she had this like overwhelming feeling of dread, which was not normal for my mother. Like, she loved traveling, and she'd been to Philly many times to visit me, and she loved it. So like, why would this particular trip, I was thinking, be like filled with dread?
Upon arrival in Philly, Ione's father called her with more disturbing news.
So my father told me my mother had had a panic attack on the plane. So this is totally out of character for my mother. Like, she never has been a person to have panic attacks, ever. So when I finally had talked to my mother, she told me what happened.
Ione's mother had that same dream about the crow the night before their trip to Philly.
Like, I was shocked. I was so shocked to like hear that she would have the dreaded dream of the crow. I mean, especially during a time where it's supposed to be joy, so trying to be as calm as I could, because obviously she was stressed out. I asked her, what name did the crow whisper? It said no one's name. And like had said that with this look on her face I'd never seen before. It just looked at me.
Later that night around 2 a.m., Ione's father received a call from her uncle Joseph, who had been staying at their house to watch the animals while they were in Philadelphia.
Yeah. So my uncle Joseph said he had been asleep downstairs on their couch when this horrific storm came through Oklahoma, and there had been a fire due to lightning that struck the house directly over my parents' bed, a foot away from where my mother sleeps.
That was the last time her mother had a dream about the crow.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, I now have a reoccurring dream. And strangely enough, eerily the same. An open field, one lone tree, but no crow. So I told my mom that, and she said, that's how my dream started. So now, like to this day, I literally dread the day that the crow may whisper a name.
This concludes Act 2. Refresh your drinks, pet your pets, check all the closets, and curl back in. We'll resume in 5 minutes.
Guess we'll take 5.
Thanks, 5.
don't know. Mine's in my room. I don't know what time. Minute and a half till places.
And I'm assuming John's going to be giving us those warnings, right?
Yeah.
Or he's going to be calling something out to the audience.
Yeah. Well, I need to figure out when.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking 5 minutes is too long. It could be because I'm just sitting here.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know how long. Intermissions. And it says there's something like intermission music, but I don't know. 50 seconds till places.
So this is John. I'm calling the warnings to the audience.
That's what I just have. That's what my queue list has. Is you give us first warning and second warning. I don't know when exactly.
That's probably a David question.
Yeah.
Well, there's usually no, I'm thinking about football. 2-minute warning. I don't know what they do in actual theater. I think it's like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
so
it's
we're not
at
going to do
5.
that, obviously.
Yeah,
But
but
maybe we should do a 2-minute warning.
yeah. Yeah, we don't have any lights to flash.
I was thinking the same thing. This is a slideshow, right?
Yeah, it's on a slideshow.
Can you go to individual slides?
There's just
It just rotates back and forth between the two?
Yeah.
If you could select a slide that says...
You can hang out in here, or you can hang out in your room and listen to Brian Regan or something. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
That is your mouse rolling around, right?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know you could see it. My bad.
I can't, no. If that's the case, then you could have a graphic and that graphic comes up and with a clock on it and you can superimpose on top of there. I don't know. I'm just playing it by ear here.
Let's get going. Stop share.
Okay, well, I'll start sharing.
We ready?
Yes.
It allowed me to share, so
Okay. Act 3, Fathers. Welcome back. It's your host again, John Burns. In Act 3, we turn our attention to the nature of fathers. Fathers' willfulness, fathers' protectiveness, fathers' interminable sense of humor. I mean, who can resist a cosmic dad joke? So let's pass the flashlight some more as we begin Act 3. When a person reaches the end of their life, how do they say goodbye? How do they communicate the love and significance of a lifelong relationship with someone else? Our next story comes from Fort Worth, Texas. Meet Susan.
Being the firstborn child to 2 ambitious and driven parents, I had many expectations placed upon me. It was understood that I would go to college, graduate, and become the next Barbara Walters. I'm only slightly joking about the Barbara Walters bit.
Susan's mother spent a lot of one-on-one time with her and focused on her early childhood development. She was reading and writing at 4 years old, starting first grade at 5, and She had graduated high school by 16.
I think there is a reason people talk about mama's boys and daddy's girls. I was definitely a daddy's girl. While I favor my mom in appearance, every aspect of my personality undeniably comes from dad. My mom has always told me stories from my childhood, and one of my favorites is how my dad and I would wear matching bib overalls, black and white pinstriped. In a way, I guess I was his little mini-me. Early in his career, my father was a radio disc jockey, and our family would always listen to his show. And whenever he would play a request or dedicate a song to us, it was magic. I can remember the morning he called my mother, telling her to turn on the radio. He had played Wake Up Little Susie by the Everly Brothers and dedicated it to me. In elementary school, everyone knew my dad was on the most popular rock station in Detroit. I was considered special, kind of like the child of a celebrity. And that lasted until a new girl came to school and her daddy was on television.
High parental expectations are often coupled with strict discipline, and for many kids, their response is to rebel.
Yeah, my teenage years were really tough for me and the whole family. My dad was a strict disciplinarian and was especially hard on me and my baby brother. I was pushing away from my parents and acting out in destructive ways. I took a lot of risks and made many bad decisions. Well, this all culminated in my being expelled from high school my senior year. Fortunately, the school attorney was a family friend, and the end result was I received on-campus suspension, where I was segregated with the bad kids until the end of the school year. Years later, my dad told me that he was at a complete loss on how to handle me. He said he tried to persuade me to stop my destructive behavior. He threatened me, he bribed me, he begged me. Nothing seemed to work. And all I wanted was to get the hell out of the house. My father once told me to get in the car and wouldn't tell me where he was taking me. And evidently, he had already made prior arrangements with the sheriff. And so he took me to the city jail and had them lock me up in a cell so that I could experience what my life would look like if I didn't straighten up and walk the straight and narrow. So, needless to say, I had an extremely contentious relationship with my father. And that didn't start to change until after I moved to Europe and married my husband. Age and circumstances had mellowed my father, and I no longer felt the need to shock and rebel. As an adult, we developed a trusting and respectful relationship. My husband and father got along extremely well, and we would go and visit him when we could, and Dad would often come by the house on weekend mornings. He'd walk in the house carrying a cup of hot coffee and call out, "Hello, kid." And I would get excited knowing that we would have an extremely entertaining morning visiting and telling stories. And I knew I could always talk with my dad about the important things, philosophical conversations about morality, loyalty, the meaning of life. We discussed what made life worth living, and the big one, does God exist? It was interesting to hear his opinions, as he usually offered a more nuanced argument. And that, along with his years of life experience, were treasures for me as I considered the answers to these questions of mine. Our discussions were always logical and fact-based, with room for emotion and human response. Neither of us were what one would call religious, spiritual, or New Age. Our conversations never included anything unexplainable. We were both cerebral beings with a strong creative side. And as I mentioned before, my dad was always ambitious and driven, the typical type A personality. And like most men, he never took care of his health like he should have.
In early 2006, Susan's father suffered a series of strokes that left him in the ICU at St. John's Hospital in Tulsa.
Dad spent weeks at St. John's, and my family and I tried to keep a rotation schedule where we could check in daily. We kept a notebook and would log what the nurses and the doctors had said so everyone who came would be apprised of his progress. After some time in ICU, he was eventually transferred to a regular room. And that was great news and gave us so much hope for recovery. It also made it more comfortable for him and for those of us spending time with him. I burned him a CD with his favorite music to listen to, hoping that it would soothe him during his many days in hospital. And after several rough weeks, it seemed like my father was improving. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, I went with a friend to see him, and he was so alert and communicative. He seemed like his old self, witty and inquisitive. I was thrilled. We were making plans for what to do when he was released and looking forward to caring for him while he recovered.
So this is where Susan's tale ventures into the supernatural. But we have to preface this part of the story by stating
I love to sleep.
Susan loves to sleep.
And I very rarely have problems going to sleep or staying to sleep. Well, except for the random bathroom visits. And even then, I trudge to the toilet with my eyes barely open, feeling my way into the bathroom, and then trudge back to bed in a semi-conscious state and immediately fall back into a deep sleep. I can sleep while under a tornado watch, which completely baffles my husband and I think also makes him jealous. So all this to say, I sleep hard and I like it that way.
Which brings us to the morning of February 16th.
I was awakened from a deep sleep. This was around 1:30 in the morning and was the strangest experience. I felt a powerful rush of energy just whoosh through me, and I sat straight up in bed, 100% wide awake. I had no idea what woke me up or why. I just knew that I felt a rush of energy that entered me. It felt urgent. It felt significant. I sat for a moment wondering at the strangeness of it, and then decided to go to the bathroom and return to bed. It wasn't 5 minutes later that the phone rang. My husband answered and called me to the phone. It was my sister, sobbing, saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He's gone and we've lost him."
Imagine for a moment being in Susan's situation. What would you think? What would you feel?
I can't tell you when I made the connection, if it was instantaneous or the epiphany happened later. But I knew that burst of physical energy that whooshed through me happened at the exact second of my father's passing. And I know that it was him letting me know and saying goodbye. I can't tell you how I knew, except that I just accepted this as truth unwaveringly. There was no need to Google search if anyone had ever experienced something similar or if there were any blog posts about something like this. I knew deep in my core. I later shared this with my sisters. I neither experienced this. It was just me. And to me, that made sense. I'm not saying that I was my father's favorite, but our relationship was, in my mind, much deeper. My father was an extraordinary man, and I am who I am today because of him. I thank him, I love him, and I miss him.
Well, it is true that some fathers never stop caring, even from the great beyond. Some choose to show it in other ways. And this brings us to our story with Catherine. Catherine was born in 1958 in Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
Hello.
At 6 years old, Catherine's life took a major turn.
1964 was a banner year for me.
Television was a big deal.
I remember seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show.
JFK.
Yes, I remember the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and I remember watching his funeral on our small black and white television set.
And that's also the year that your father saved your life for the first time.
It was a Sunday night in late January. And as usual, my mother and my two older sisters were at church doing different activities. And my dad was home with me. I was in our den watching my favorite TV show, My Favorite Martian, while my dad was in the kitchen doing the books on the adding machine for his feed and seed store. When a commercial came on, my 6-year-old self decided that that would be a great time to go into my sister's bedroom and nose around. I found a bottle of nail polish remover on the dresser, and I thought that was really cool because I knew that nails and polish and things like that were things that big girls did, and I wanted to be like the big girls. So I opened it up and managed to spill it all over my pajama top. Well, I didn't want to get into trouble, so I decided that I should dry it. Now, remember, this was 1964, and we didn't have central heat and air in our house. We did have a gas floor furnace and gas wall heaters, though.
So for those of you who aren't familiar, a gas floor furnace or gas wall heater is an open flame in one of a number of available metal coverings. But in most cases, of course, that flame, it was readily accessible.
Well, there was a bathroom that was in between my sister's bedroom and the den where I'd been watching television. And since it was late January, the gas wall heater was on. So I made the bad decision to go to that wall heater to dry my shirt. Well, of course, my shirt ignited and flames were belching out of my torso. I remember crying, running in place, and I could see my dad around the corner in the kitchen, pushing numbers into his adding machine. He heard me crying and he said, "What's the matter, honey?" But he didn't come. I think I must have gone into shock or something because I wanted to cry out to him and I wanted to run to him, but I couldn't speak at all. All I could do was cry and run in place. And he said it again, "What's the matter, honey?" And I couldn't respond, and I could hear the sound of that adding machine click, 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 shh. Until finally he stood up and he came around the corner and he started walking towards me. But it was kind of like watching a movie in slow motion. And then suddenly he was there and he wrapped me up in the biggest bear hug I think I've ever had. He took me down to the floor and he was able to smother the flames with his own body. And I remember after that he wrapped me up in a big blanket and he rushed me to the city hospital. I remember lying on a hospital bed with a metal frame over my torso with a light bulb screwed into the center of it that was turned on, I guess, for heat. And the sheet was pulled over the metal frame so that nothing could touch my torso. Within a couple of days after I had arrived there, a little girl who was across the hall from me and who had burned her back very severely died. And when that happened, I was told years later that a nurse came into my room, took my dad aside, and said, The people here, the doctors here, have no idea what to do for her, for your daughter. They don't know how to save her. And if you don't get her out of here and into the Hillcrest Burn Center in Tulsa, your daughter will most likely die too. Well, that was all my dad needed to hear. And the next thing I knew, I was being rushed by ambulance to Hillcrest Burn Center in Tulsa. Now, the thing is, it's not the same Hillcrest that exists today. Back in 1964, the present Hillcrest was in the process of being built. And in my several week stay in that hospital, I watched as a group of men built the Hillcrest Hospital that we now see today.
So because of her father's quick reactions and the decision to move Catherine to Hillcrest in Tulsa, she eventually made a full recovery.
Yes, I did. And my dad and I, we had a really special bond ever since then. I grew up knowing that my dad was my hero and that he would always come to my rescue no matter what. And I carried that with me throughout my adult life. One of the things that I remember the most about my dad was the way he smelled. Now, Dad was a chain smoker. And in, excuse me, in the 60s and the 70s, you could smoke almost anywhere you wanted to, and he did. And he smoked a combination of cigarettes, pipe tobacco, and cigars. And the combination of those three tobaccos made for a very distinctive odor that was very unique to my dad. It pervaded our house, our clothing, our vehicles. I mean, today, most people would probably find that kind of smell repulsive, but to me, it meant safety and protection and love. I loved the way my dad smelled.
Fast forward many years later to the early 2000s.
Dad died in 2004. A couple of days after his death, I got in my car and was backing out of the driveway when I noticed a very familiar smell. And as I continued backing out of the driveway, the smell got stronger and it was extremely distinctive. And I knew immediately what it was. It was my dad. As I drove down the street, the smell was getting stronger and stronger. I got to the first stop sign, and by that time, the smell had gotten so strong that I literally said out loud, "Daddy?" I started to look to my left and then again to my right, and there was absolutely no one coming. And as I started to go into the intersection, the smell got so strong at that moment that I literally felt enveloped in it. And also at that same moment, from out of nowhere, I see a car speeding at me, coming straight for me. Well, I slammed on my brakes. The other driver slammed on his, but he came within a hair's breadth of broadsiding me. Well, I sat there in my car, shaking with fear and relief. I could not believe that guy did not hit me. And I looked over at him, and he honked his horn at me, and he pulled around me and went on his way. And it took me a few seconds to pull myself together enough to continue going down the street. And as I did, I noticed that that smell, which had been so strong before, just seconds before, was dissipating. And by the time I got to the next stop sign, it had vanished completely. I know my dad was in the car with me that day. I know it. There's no way his smell could have been in my car any other way, and I know what I smelled. No one and nothing smelled like my dad. And then when I had a chance to think about it, it absolutely did not surprise me. Well, of course he was there. He was doing what he had been doing my entire life, protecting his little girl.
So while some fathers just continue to take care of their children after death. Other fatherly figures might spend their time, well, messing with you. When you're a child growing up in a small town in the 1950s, your imagination runs wild. Big old houses can hide the secrets that may never be truly known. And those imagined secrets can sometimes be hard to distinguish from reality. Tim grew up in such a town, Franklinville, New York. Nestled in the foothills of the Allegheny Mountains in western New York State, the village was filled with old, grand houses, some owned by generations of one family, and local tales were a tradition.
I was raised to believe in ghosts. My grandmother always used to tell me that every house has a spirit. Some are good, some not so good. She had seen the spirit that lived in their house. During the 1930s, my grandparents, who had emigrated from Italy, lived with my mom and her 3 sisters in a big old house in Auburn, New York. They lived on the first floor, and they rented out the second floor to make ends meet. My mom and her 3 sisters all slept in one bedroom. One night, my grandmother woke up and she saw a young girl walk past the bedroom door. Rather than follow the young girl, she turned the corner just to see which daughter was out of bed. All 4 of them were sound asleep. My grandmother, who would call you the next day if she had had a dream about you, said the spirit in their house was good. I would walk past the old houses in our town, many of which I had heard were haunted. And I was wondering when I would see a ghost. I would have feelings when I walked near certain houses, or sometimes when in my grandparents' house, but I never really had any evidence. My mom and my Aunt Yolanda would have dreams, usually around the time of someone's death. But these dreams were always dismissed as coincidence or funny. But I secretly wondered when it would happen to me. I mean, just some concrete evidence. Lilydale, New York is a spiritualist community about an hour from Franklinville. I had heard the stories from people who had visited there. It was considered strange. My parents always found a way to avoid a trip, and that was frustrating to me. I wanted some answers.
While attending college in Buffalo, New York in 1975, Tim just may have gotten his wish.
When I was a junior in college, some friends and I rented an apartment on Linwood Avenue in Buffalo. Linwood is lined with old Victorian houses that had been divided into apartments, and it was close to Canisius College in Buffalo State. We found an apartment with 3 large bedrooms, a huge kitchen and bath, and a big second-story front porch. And we had a separate entrance on the side of the house. Needless to say, there were some epic parties thrown in that apartment. We had been there a couple of years when some college friends of ours, Billy and Mary Ann, found an apartment 3 houses down from ours. Their apartment was in this big gray house that was right next to the parking ramp for Millard Fillmore Hospital. And the house had been divided rather strangely. It had a big front porch. You entered the door on the porch and you walked up a flight of stairs to Billy and Mary Ann's apartment, which also had a big second-story front porch like ours. The people who lived on the first floor entered through the back and had no access to the front porch. Mary Ann and Billy actually rented the second and third floors in the front. Mary Ann had her bedroom on the second floor, and Billy had his in the back on the third floor. The rest of the third floor was one big room that, no surprise, had hosted a lot of gatherings. So it was close to the end of August, and it was a typical college moving day. We had plenty of beer and pot and pizza. We were going to order pizza when we were done. Billy and Marianne pulled up in the U-Haul, and we had everything upstairs within a couple of hours. I think there were 6 of us working. It was a late afternoon on a warm August day, and 3 of us are sitting on the couch facing the double French doors that opened out onto the second-story porch. A couple of folks were sitting in chairs, also facing these open French doors. Marianne was behind us in the kitchen, starting to unpack. We had our beers, someone's rolling a joint, and we're discussing whether to order pizza or whether to order wings and pizza. Like I said, it was late afternoon on a sunny day, and suddenly we all felt a stiff breeze coming from our backs where there were no doors or windows. We all stopped and we looked at each other. I got up and I walked into the kitchen. I looked at Marianne and I said, "Did you feel that?" She nodded her head. I said, "I think you have a ghost," kind of jokingly. Well, we ate our pizza and we started to help Billy and Marianne unpack. By Billy's room on the 3rd floor, there was a door leading to a back stairway. It was locked, but the key was in the door. So, being college students, we felt compelled to investigate. We opened the door. The stairway had some old window shades, a couple of paint cans, some other crap stored in it. But directly opposite the door was a window that looked out onto the back of the house. On the sill was a small painting, about 8 by 10. It was a series of circles that looked like they had all been drawn in one motion. And where the circles intersected, it formed a smiling face that had been painted in blacks and grays and browns and green and yellow. We immediately knew that this was our ghost. We locked the door, we left the picture where it was, and Marianne named him Edwin. Edwin would reveal himself whenever you visited. He would suddenly pop up in your peripheral vision. And of course, when you turned to focus on him, he vanished. You'd walk into the bathroom and turn on the light, and you'd see someone standing in the shower behind you. Or you would go up to the 3rd floor, and he'd be behind the half wall. Well, sometimes you would see Edwin from the shoulders up, and other times he would be a full figure. He was all in black, almost like a hologram, but always with an indistinct version of that painting as his face, and always smiling. We would usually bring our dogs with us, and the dogs were never frightened, but they wouldn't go up to the 3rd floor. It seemed like Edwin liked having us around. He liked playing jokes on us. One evening, we had dinner and we were sitting and we were talking in the living room, and our new friend Cindy excused herself and went into the bathroom. Suddenly, we heard a terrified scream. We all looked at each other.
They had forgotten to tell Cindy about Edwin.
Damn. We forgot to tell her about Edwin. One night, about 2 a.m, Marianne woke from a sound sleep, and Edwin was standing by her bed. and he wasn't popping in and out like he usually did. Marianne said he seemed urgent, and he just stayed. So Marianne got up, and she said that Edwin led her upstairs to Billy's room. She found Billy with 104-degree fever. She managed to get him downstairs in the car and next door to the emergency room just before his appendix burst.
At this point, Tim felt like he had his evidence.
I think knowing Edwin gave me an acceptance of my beliefs and a confidence in them. I've lost track of Billy and Marianne and of course Edwin, but I certainly will never forget them. And I have felt how thin the veil is on many occasions. When you walk into my friend Dorothy's house in Franklinville, it still smells like her grandfather's cigars. And he died in 1965. I was very good friends with Maxine Andrews of the Andrews Sisters. 3 days before she passed in 1995, whatever store we walked into, they were playing the Andrews Sisters. And even now, when I'm really down, I'll hear a song by the sisters on the radio, or in the soundtrack of a movie, or playing as background music in a store. I finally got to Lilydale in 2005 after my father died. Seated in the amphitheater, one of the spiritualists pointed to me and said from the stage, "There are two spirits watching over you. If you just listen to them, a tall man and a small woman. Whenever I dream of my grandmother, who was 4'8", the dream will come true literally." I was looking through some things the other day, and I found an old journal. And apparently, on the night my mother died, I had dreamed about my father, who was 6'2". Nothing's ever the end. Just different.
This concludes Act 3 and our show.
Pause. Hey, so what I want to do here is I want for Brooke to send out the invitations for everyone's video to come on before the end of Tim's story. And when Tim says nothing is ever the end, it's what's the line, Tim?
Just changes.
It just changes.
Yeah, it's just different.
Just different.
It's just different. I want everyone to accept that video turn on so that all of your screens come up at the same time. And then John, you can say your transition. And then whenever he says, good night, sleep well, everybody turn off your video. And then Brooke, you'll start that slide share at that time. Can we take it back and try that? So turn your video back, turn Tim's video back on, and then it looks like.
Brooke, you want to turn mine back off?
Do we need to even wait?
You
for
can
Brooke,
turn
or
it
do we
off.
just take that as a cue?
You actually, Brooke doesn't have to send you an invitation.
Yeah.
Lori's right. Like you can all just run a queue. Brooke doesn't have to invite everybody. You can control your own video from start to stop. She's really only sending those invitations to you to help you to be queued. So
well, I'm sorry, David, when I hit start video, it says I can't because the host has disabled it.
Okay, I may be wrong about that. If that's the case, then yeah, then Brooke needs to do it. Lori, try it on yours and see. Yeah, if she turns off your video, you may have to wait for her to turn it back on.
Yeah, I have to wait, but I'm wondering if she does can she, while Tim's still talking, turn everybody back on?
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's what I was.
Invitations.
Yeah, that's what I was saying is like if she sends the invitation so that while Tim's talking, everybody's got it, and then you wait to accept the invitation until his line,
just
Right.
different.
Yeah. And then everybody comes back in. John says the salutations, and then when he says good night, sleep well, everybody ends your video, and then Brooke, you'll hit the slide share.
So you'll have two buttons on the invitation that say okay and later. And so everybody clicks okay when Tim says just different, right?
Presumably, yeah, that's my idea. Let's try it. So Tim, give us like a couple lines of lead in if you don't mind.
Sure.
Wait, before we start, Brooke, are all the invitations sent out? Is there anybody who hasn't received an invitation? Okay, sounds like we're good to go.
Catherine. Oh,
I
no,
have
no.
not.
Okay,
I haven't.
Catherine.
Susan
I
hasn't.
haven't. I am.
Okay.
Catherine, Ione, and Lori.
Susan.
No.
Susan
Catherine's
Durgol.
good. Catherine's good.
Ion's good.
I'm good.
I got it.
I
Okay.
haven't.
Susan Durgol.
Once everybody talks, it moves. The...
Okay, now I have it.
Tim,
You okay, Timmy?
Sorry.
Okay, and give us a couple lines lead in. So the line is, tell us the line first, and then give us a lead in.
The line is, just to make sure nothing is ever the end, just different.
Okay, so after the end, you can turn your video on. Go back.
Okay.
Hang on. Wait a minute. Some people jumped the gun. We were just giving you the line. So Michael and Susan, turn off. And now, Tim, give us a couple lines lead in and then go.
Sure. The other day I was going through some things and I found some old journals. Apparently, the night my mother died, I dreamed about my father, who was 6'2". Nothing is ever the end, just different.
Oh, this concludes Act 3 and our show. I'm John Burns. Heck, just call me John. We're on a first name basis. We've been through a heck of a lot. I'm saying thank you for joining our circle this evening. If you've had your own uncanny experiences and never spoken about them to anyone, now you know you're not alone. In fact, it may be that you're never alone. We hope you have been inspired to share, I'm sorry, your own experiences. And I had a thought, I'll share, and to continue the storytelling tradition. And pass the flashlight. This has been a production of American Theater Company. And if you wish to make a tax-deductible donation to American Theater Company, you may do so on their website at americantheatercompany.org, through their Facebook page, or through the link in the description of this event. Good night and sleep well.
Yay, the music.
When I said it may be that you're never alone, all of a sudden I thought, and not in the Dear Evan Hansen way, you're never alone. I meant it in a creepy way. But the way I said it felt like Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh, dude.
And my video got turned off.
Your video got turned off. What?
Yeah, because that's what
the video would be
sheet
off.
says, is I needed to gradually turn them off.
Yeah. So your video get turned off whenever he says goodnight.
Okay.
You should turn it off, not make Brooke turn it off.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like that went well. And something similar to that is how it's supposed to go at the beginning and at intermissions and whatnot, but we'll work through those things tomorrow. I'm trying to make sure I close the correct screen here. So my Zoom went to full screen randomly.
David, I have a question.
Okay, everybody can turn their video back on now.
No, I can't.
Why not?
Because nobody will let me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mine's disabled too.
Hold on. Nobody say way that moves things around.
The music, the sweet, sweet music. Okay. Hey, so I wasn't able to chime in during some of the discussions about the intermission music. I think what we ought to do is just create those cards and the canned music for both the pre-show and the intermission as just videos that Brooke can play, so you don't have to worry about running 2 items at the same time ever. And then we'll also go ahead and underscore Darby's video, whatever that is, in advance, so that we don't have to worry about sharing 2 screens at once in case that snafu happens again. So then during those times, it can just be either Brooke sharing the video, or it can be Michael sharing music in the other stories.
Well, I'm not opposed to just taking one of the songs, like the one that's playing now, Disrepair. It's solemn and kind of scary. And then she could just map that over to the slideshow, and it can just run whenever the slideshow is running. And so, Brooke, you're able to put background music to a slideshow, right?
No, whenever you select the screen share, you either can share your whole screen or you can share like a selected portion of it. And because she's
Miss
managing a bunch of
Bockavoy
different
just sent me
stuff.
an email of some of the things. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Whatever you guys want to do. I just had a suggestion there. But if you want me to stream music, I can stream music during that time. But we both have to share whatever this.
An alternative might be to have Michael share the slides. That may be the easiest fix, is to have you share those. It's just images in a slideshow off of a Windows-based image viewer. So it's not even like, it's nothing complex. You could conceivably do both from your machine, Michael, if you wanted to.
I certainly could.
Those images are in the Passive Flashlight Google Drive if you want to test it out.
Well, what I would do is create a video and then show each of those images for what, 10 seconds?
Yeah, that's what the
Flip
timing
them
was.
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, and just
then,
loop
then
it.
the video, or any other images, and then so we have this this video that could be useful for the intro, intermissions, and for the outro.
They're all
And-
different for each of those scenarios, but yeah, that's the
no.
idea. That's okay. It's just 8 images, and they're in. Yeah, just have a look and see what you can do, and if you can do it, great. If not, then we'll sort out another solution. We have time now. We got the bigger problems solved earlier today, so we have time to sort that out.
Okay.
Everyone should know there is a new document I created while the show was happening tonight. It's called 1028 Notes. There are items in there for everyone. And one of the big hitters is that we actually didn't go through the sound check tonight that we described, even though we had intended to. We were just, I think, a little bit flummoxed by the issue at the beginning of rehearsal with getting people logged on. So tomorrow we'll make sure to definitely do that. We're also going to have to add some kind of a video check, because we have some camera issues which were described throughout the notes. So those of you who had camera issues, didn't mean to call you out on it, but I already made the notes and I didn't feel like going back and deleting them. Plus I'll be able to remember tomorrow. So I'll take it personally. I just needed to make the notes, but we'll do a camera check tomorrow. So just, like, if you see your name, just make sure you raise your hand in pre-show tomorrow. And then the rest of it is just kind of like some timing things I want you to kind of make a note of, and very, very few performative things. I really am so pleased with how all the stories are turning out. They're so unique and compelling, and I really appreciate all of you sharing and being open to sharing your stories and being really vulnerable for this project. And I think that it's going to be well received. So the YouTube live stream looked great tonight. A lot of the transitions that we went through for the first time tonight actually looked great, and we avoided the big no-no, which is a series of talking heads, stagnant talking heads. So we got past that, and that was my big thing. I wanted to get knocked down. So I feel like everything's downhill from here. Tomorrow we're gonna, I know that it says 7:30 on the schedule. Is there anybody who's opposed to 7 o'clock call time so we can actually get started at 7:30?
7 sounds good to me.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
You
I
know,
don't
since
hear-
showtime is actually 7 on Friday, we
Yeah, I
might
know.
want to push
So I
that
want
back.
to, I want to scale it back. So we call at 7:30 tonight. We can do a call at 7 tomorrow, and then a call at 6:30 on Friday, which I feel like I'm stepping on Brooke's toes a little bit here because that's it's really her area to boss you around. So actually, that's probably a good cue for me to just shut up and let Brooke give you the rest of whatever has to be said.
Oh,
don't see-
no, I don't think I have any notes for anybody. How did Darby's video pre-recorded thing look tonight?
You talking to me?
Yes.
I thought it looked good, and actually, I was going to tell you, good job on the like pausing it and restarting it. You just have to be careful because your mouse is visible on the screen, and whenever the menus from the bottom and top of your screen drop in, you can see that in the live view. Also, Darby's working on another mix of that video too, so we'll see how it turns out. I'm actually kind of excited because that one turned out pretty well, I thought. Just had those timing issues, which you were able to solve kind of on the fly. So I thought it was fine.
Okay.
We'll have to work in. There's a note there. We'll have to work in a different line for John at the beginning of it, so that people know that it's been pre-recorded, so they're a little more forgiving of some of the technical stuff they'll see. But other than that, it's fine. Just control the audience's expectation on it.
If Darby's still around, she needs to boost her audio by 25% or so. She was really low.
Yeah,
I
she's
could
not
barely
here, but I
hear
have
her.
that note. I have
Yeah.
that note.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you, but I'm just saying
No,
that
that's okay.
when someone's low, then you either need to increase the vocal or decrease the music. And
There are
so
notes. There are notes in the document here for who's low, and with the exception of Darby's video, because I'm just going to have a side conversation with her about that for to solve some of the stuff that's going on with her video. There's plus she may have another video come through too, so I didn't want her to put a bunch of work into that one if we end up deciding to go with the other video.
fair enough.
So for everybody who doesn't know, Darby ended up getting a gig that she has to leave for on Friday. So we're having to kind of last minute scramble to pre-record her segment. So that's kind of what's happening there. I just didn't want anybody to be out of the loop on that. So she got a really cool gig that she and her partner are going to go do, and they're kind of fortunate to get it. I don't think it was an easy one to land. So we're just gonna.
So she's making money?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
Which is,
well, all right then.
Yeah, yeah, right. So yeah. Are there any questions? I know if you guys get into the notes, you'll probably have some questions. I feel like those are, if it's questions about the notes, let's wait until pre-show tomorrow. But if there's anything that came up tonight that you have questions about, I'd like to answer those for you.
I have a question.
Okay.
You can't see me, but in my video, John Burns' name popped up every time after he spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just my Zoom?
It's only your view in Zoom. Which is why I needed to step out of Zoom tonight and go watch it.
Okay.
The live version doesn't show that. It just only shows your faces. And if you're on the screen together, it does still have that obnoxious neon colored rectangle around your faces. But aside from that, it's not.
Okay.
It doesn't show anybody's video. If your video's off, you're nowhere to be seen on the stream. So, which is why we're utilizing that function. We just have to be careful about audio too. I do think that if your audio is on, and even if your video is off, you can still be heard in the stream. So you guys want to be a second set of eyes to make sure that you're monitoring your own audio and video in the show. Brooks, that's 18 different, that's 20 different functions that Brooke has to kind of be mindful of, plus her own So the more you can help to just kind of double check those settings, the better. Anybody else?
David?
Yes.
Oh, bummer. Oh, shucks. Never mind.
What?
Well, I was actually trying to, it doesn't matter. No, it's fine.
Okay. Anyone?
I'm good.
I'll tell you what, it would be incredibly useful to have some kind of like chat system for when these intermissions are coming closer. As you know, you know, I'm sure we're listening to these things, but like it would be great if.
Do you guys want to turn the chat back on in the Zoom chat?
I mean, it's just like, you know, like when you're off stage, just it's nice to have like a, you know, a little bit of a heads up that something's about to happen, you know, because we get lost in our thoughts and stuff.
Sure.
It would just be unfortunate if, you know, we missed like a video cue near the end of the Zoom, just listening to, you know.
Would a chat help you guys? Would having that chat help you guys?
I agree, Derek, with that. Just a little like, hey, get your shit together.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Come back, y'all.
We could
I'm
do.
drinking wine.
Here's the thing that we could do.
You know?
Lori, put
Hey,
down the brandy.
Hey, the thing that we could do is potentially group text everybody who's not involved, but you kind of, I mean, that would be, you have to have them on vibrate and make sure your mics are off. I mean, there's a lot that can kind of go wrong with, especially since we're using our phones for flashlights. So kind of like try to just turn off those channels.
Not a
but
good thing. Yeah, my phone goes blank in between your messages, and then your message comes
Aren't we
out.
all on laptops? Why don't, like, I mean, Facebook Messenger, if our phones are off, you could have some kind of, like, even if it's not Zoom, some kind of messaging
Yeah,
service
I'm
through
up
the
for
laptop.
that. We can do the chat right here in
Doesn't
the
have to
Zoom,
be
but
on
I
the
don't think
phone.
it pings you. I don't think it pings you though.
I don't get pinged.
Yeah, and I'm not
No,
sure.
you don't
will
get
Facebook
pinged, but at
Messenger
least
ping you either?
but your focus stays on the screen instead of being deviated to another screen as you would be with Facebook Messenger. So yeah, I would say just turn the chat on and then you can
Okay.
watch the stream.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that as long as it doesn't bleed over into the YouTube stream. I don't have a problem with that. I just thought it would be easier for you guys to not have that as a
I mean, if
side
we're all just
distraction,
kind of blind, it's just risky to have like totally blind running, you know, for actors, because actors are.
I know who you are.
We're all ADD, man.
Because actors never watch the show.
I was putting my kids to bed while people were telling stories. That's multitasking.
Yeah, it is.
You're awesome.
Good job, Dad.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just don't know what the solution is. So let's try tomorrow by having the chat back on. And Brooke, that's just something that we'll have to go back and turn on in the settings for Zoom. I turned it off earlier, thinking it would be one thing.
I don't know. That's a conundrum for me because I have my phone on airplane mode so that it doesn't ring or any of that bullshit. My phone is my flashlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it needs to be in the Zoom. It needs to be, I think that's the only real way to do it.
I can't see the chat if I don't put my glasses on. I don't want to put my glasses on while I'm in the Zoom because.
Well, then you just have to pay attention.
See, and I can do that. I can totally do that. So don't worry about me, y'all. I got this.
All right.
I would consider the chat to be something to look at, like between scenes and stuff, you know, for actors anyway. I don't know.
Are you adjusting your contact? Because I'm fascinated.
I'm a hair picker. I'm pulling on my eyelashes. That's my psychological fun.
That's okay. I have tweezers and pull chin hairs at work, so we won't talk about that.
Do the people get mad when you pull their chin hairs?
I pull my own. They don't know. I always put the tweezers away before they come to my office.
All right. So we'll do the chat tomorrow, see if that's helpful. If it's not, then we'll just address maybe a different solution tomorrow. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay. Unless Brooke has some reason to keep you here, I don't. I want you all to go get
Thank
some
you.
rest and look at those notes. I don't know who did that, but that's funny.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Good show, you
Bye.
guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Jeez.
I'm trying to find the chimes. I can't find the chimes.
That's funny.
Was Ione's story okay as far as keeping John on the whole time?
Did you keep him on the whole time? I couldn't tell sometimes because I was writing notes in between. Like I was
Yeah, it's
flipping.
just because it's a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
It takes out of the story a little bit to have John there all the time, but there's really no reason to like keep pinging him if it's just one or two sentences.
Well, I think I actually made a note about that. Hang on. Let me just read what I put. I don't remember exactly. Let's see. I don't remember. I didn't put a note on it, so I mean, I think it probably looked good. Hey, since it's just Brooke and Michael left on here, can we maybe set a time tomorrow to try to see if we can get to the bottom of the sound thing? I do feel like just making a video out of those
Slideshows and the songs.
Yeah.
Actually, that we're talking about the. First of all, I do have the Google folder open. I did. Where's it at now? Oh, okay. So I have your notes open, and I'm going back. Google's Drive.
Folders that say finale, first intermission, and pre-show and second intermission.
Google Drive trash is changing. All right. Well, good for you. Google Drive trash is changing. So what the hell do I care about that? All right. So I'm at the. Where are these files?
They're the first ones that say finale, first intermission, second intermission, pre-show.
Okay, but I don't see the graphics for.
They're in folders. They're folders. If you click on them, they'll open up and you'll get two images.
I got them. So there's only two.
Yeah, the file names are are different folders. So the whatever one you opened up is for.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah. They're divided up into sections.
I got it. All right. So I need to make 4 videos and put background music in them to loop.
Yeah. So the
forever.
pre-show needs to be at least 30 minutes. And yeah. And then, if we have to hold for, people are still coming on the live stream and we have to hold before we start, then we'll just need to be able to click backward in the file to, add 10 minutes or something. But intermission is going to be something where we just need to run it tight. So it needs to be like a 6-minute long track, 5-minute intermission, give them a 6-minute track, and then, add chimes to it at the 2 minutes remaining and 1 minute remaining mark, and then call it good. And
well, that's all doable. I mean, I've created lots and lots of videos, so I have all the software.
Cool.
And my typical thing is to go grab a bunch of stills, whether it's me or my singer or videos or whatever, and then put the music to it. So I'll do that.
For these, you just rotate those images back and forth. So that's, you have all the images you need.
And those are, you're going to cycle every 10 seconds. Is that fine?
We were doing 10 seconds just because that's how it was automated on her machine. But if you wanted to run it up to like 15 seconds, I'd be fine with that too. And that's less editing work you have to make as well.
All right, let's make sure I got it down. The pre-show, how long?
Let's do a 40-minute pre-show with no play out, because we really only want to have a 30-minute pre-show, but at least there'll be 10 minutes of extra time on the off chance that there are people still, clicking in all at the last minute, or 5 minutes late or something, so we can hold for a couple of minutes without having to backtrack the track. So do a 40-minute play in on the pre-show.
And first, how long for it? 6 minutes down here?
6 minutes for both intermissions, with chimes at the -2 and -1 mark. And then the play off can also be 40 minutes. So you could basically just put the same track on the play out. On the goodbyes.
On that finale, right?
Yeah, yes.
Well, I mean, I have, since we're making videos, I have like a dozen scary songs.
Oh, yeah, throw them in there.
It won't be repeating the same song.
Oh, okay.
And I think we're good here. I can do that. I can do this and probably get it done tomorrow. And we'll try to pony it up for tomorrow's rehearsal.
Okay.
Now,
And
am I playing those, or is Brooke playing them?
It probably would be easier on Brooke if you'd play them.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. You guys can put me in charge of that.
But you have to, and so something I want to talk about though is we need to time the transitions at the top of the show and at these intermissions, because some of it was a little bit clunky tonight. And I understand it's because it's the first time doing it, but one of the things I want for Brooke to be able to do is to get, like, on these intermissions, I want her to be able to get queued up the people whose video is to be sharing before the slideshow comes down. Does that make sense?
No, try again.
So
did you get it, Brooke?
No.
So instead of like the slideshow coming down and then people's heads popping up into the window and like,
oh, I see.
I don't want the audience to see us getting ready. I want us to
Right.
be like, boom, like lights come up and the cabaret is there. Does that make sense?
I got it.
Maybe
Yeah.
give them like a warning around the 1 minute warning as well.
Well, who? The cast?
Yeah, or whoever's coming up next. Yeah.
Well, for the pre-show, Ed, we're running 40 minutes, so I'm going to start that 40 minutes before, and we can't count on the start. It'll
No.
just have to fade.
So we're
whenever we're going to need a back channel. Hey, time to go in.
Yeah, and I think that's right. The thing I'll say also about the 40 minutes in the pre-show, I mean, that's just kind of like old school live theater, me preparing for potentially holding the house for 10 minutes.
Right.
So realistically, we're not going to hear the last 10 minutes or see the last 10 minutes of that video.
Mm-hmm. Right. Hopefully not.
Well, I mean, I guess I wouldn't really mind if we did see it, because I mean, people are still like streaming into the show, which we'll be able to see on the front end. Like when I'll watch the live stream and be able to say, oh, hey, hold on. And I guess that, like, Brooke, I probably just need to be on the phone with you, or and man, it's just so hard because we're using their phones for flashlights. I wonder if that's kind of like a critical mistake we made.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just think there's another side of me that's like, they can just be freaking responsible adults. It's not like they have a million cues.
My problem with the phone was mine keeps going dark, and then I have to put in my little password over and over again. And so,
for the light?
yeah, well, actually, it's a Android, and then I have to do the scroll screen thing. So it's just not going to be possible.
Well, and some people weren't even using them tonight for, and I actually was okay with it. Like, I didn't see anything that I was like, oh God, that sucks. Like, I was kind of okay with all of it. Some of it, their backgrounds were a little bit bright, but I didn't have a problem with a lot of what I was seeing. So, I mean, for yours, Michael, I mean, if you want to use different lights, if you want to actually like set up like typical show lighting in your in your space there, that'd be fine too. Like if you want to.
I shall. I'll do the same. I don't want to look any different than anybody else. Um, yeah, I've got a little lamp that I'm going to put underneath my desk here, and that'll do. So phones is just not a good back channel for me or for others. I think that you're right about the Zoom chat. I think that that's probably the best way to go. Um, but on your screen, you're going to be watching YouTube. Hey, let me ask you this: does the YouTube stream sound give you a different sound than what you receive in Zoom?
No, I think the mix is about the same.
Oh.
The mix is about the same. And I was gonna say to you, I think instrument to instrument you have to adjust because like that mandolin comes in real hot. Like
Yeah.
and I like even over the electric guitar, the it just cuts through everything. And I
What's
know it
funny
was
about it
also
is it's got a passive amplifier in it. The rest of them are all electric amplifier, have a little battery. It's passive, and so it's different than the rest of them. But that's my problem. I will try to normalize those instruments, and you bet.
what else was I gonna say? No, I mean, I think if we get that video settled and just work those entrances, if the entrances don't go like smoothly tomorrow, we'll just stay after it and work it.
Okay.
Although, I mean, it went really well. The exit went really well tonight after I stopped everything and told them what to do. I wonder if, the other thing is like we could turn on John's mic. That's it. That's what we need to do is you just need to text with John and just say, okay, John, in 3 minutes, just start talking and tell everybody else, John's going to start talking in so many minutes, and then whenever he says a certain thing, they can all click to turn on their videos. That's what we need to do. It just needs to be similar to the exit. Right. So you can send everybody a message early and be like, okay, the show is starting. John's going to start talking here in just a couple minutes. And when you hear John say,
good evening and welcome.
Yeah. Good evening and welcome. What are his first lines?
Good evening and welcome. Welcome
What else?
to
I'm
the
like, go ahead.
His pre-show is good evening and welcome. Welcome to the circle. A circle not unlike some of you have found yourself in before.
I think, okay, here's just based on listening to you say that right now, what we should do is when he says good evening and welcome, you turn on his video or he turns on his video and says good evening and welcome. And then as he starts talking after that, you just gradually start adding people. So it'll be like bing, 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 bing. People are popping up onto the screen and the list is just growing and growing and growing. And then you sort of do the reverse, right? You start turning people off. And then till it's back down to just John. And then John says, this is Chris. Boom, up pops Chris, and we're into the first story.
Want me to take them out is when he finishes and says, we pass the flashlight, and he goes into Act 1, Mysteries.
Yeah, so, and then we pass the flashlight, and that's when you start. So you have them all built in before he says, and we pass the flashlight. And then as he says Act 1, Mysteries, you start gradually taking them out.
Okay.
And that is pretty easy to do. You just say, just tell everybody, hey, John's going to start talking in about 3 minutes. So just pay attention. And then you tell John when you want him to go, and everybody cues off of John.
Okay.
And I feel like that's going to be really easy to communicate to everybody.
Yeah, it should be. I hope.
Word.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this effects boards down here, and I am going to put all 4 instruments in a single individual lines, normalize their volume across there, and they can stay plugged in for the whole show. And so all I'll do is just grab one, put the other one down, vice versa, la la la. And so all that, I will have known volume coming out of all of them settled out. And yeah, this effects pedal is really not doing that much for me anyway, and I've got effects on this board, so let's just do that way. So my 4 individual instruments will be balanced from the get-go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And
And
then you just have to adjust your master gain on, whatever the Zoom input is.
No, I should. Oh, and once,
Yeah,
once we settle on it.
set it. Yeah.
Yeah. Once we settle on it, it should be the same for everybody.
Awesome.
For
Yeah, I do think you're right. I think that there were some people who were like, because I think Susan's just cut you off, and it was like that day when the piano when we were doing a midday test with you and the three of us, and Brooke, like every time Brooke would talk, it would just like kill your machine.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened with Susan.
Mm.
And then the next one started accepting you in, and gradually as it was going, you could hear more and more. It was like picking more and more up of your
Right.
guitar.
All right, so I got plenty to do myself, and
well, thanks for taking on making those videos. I appreciate it. I've been
Sure.
kind of my workload at work has just been like, it's like a snow plow. Like you just keep shoving and it's getting too heavy to pick up. Now I'm just like doing stuff here for this and like going down all these rabbit holes trying to figure out Zoom and YouTube, and it's just been like I haven't been able to keep up with anything. So thanks for taking that on.
well, like I said, I have all the I have the software, and I know how to use it, so it shouldn't be a problem. And it makes sense anyway for me to run those. And I do see.
For that matter, we might have you run Darby's video too, Michael, just so that
why not?
everything comes from year one.
Yes. All right. So I see music or computer sound only. We won't be doing that. We're going to be doing. Brooke, when you share your screen, which do you just say share screen?
Yeah, if I share screen, I'm gonna click it and it's gonna stop yours, and then it gives me screen or the phone or files or whatever screen I want to share, and I just click on that and I can share it. Oh, yep.
Huh. Alrighty. Well, you guys are looking at my screen,
Yes.
and I'll play a video. And so we'll test it out right now.
So the way to do it though, Michael, is to open up the window with the player so that it's a separate window. So when you go to share screen, you have the option to just pick the window of that particular program.
Right.
Instead of your whole screen.
Sure. So, no audio. I don't hear audio. Why
Oh, you
not?
have to. What was it?
Share
Share
computer.
computer sound when you click which you want, what file or screen you want to share.
Okay, so you have that playing. So go ahead and hit stop share. Like pause the video for a second. Then hit stop share. Okay. Now go back to share screen. And you should be able to select just that file there. So when you click on that, the little blue button on the bottom right will highlight. But then next to that, you have to select
did I
first.
go too fast?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Stop sharing.
Now,
share screen.
Now select the item, and then next to the little blue button, there should be an option to share computer audio.
It's on like the bottom left of the thing.
Oh, I see it.
And then check it and then click share.
All right, well then that's what we'll do. My vocal is stepping on the audio of the sound again.
Yeah, but it's also because your microphone is picking up the sound of your computer playing the audio. It's like a loop, so it's not the vocals stepping on top of it. It's the echo diminishing.
you have to go to Zoom to change the volume. Oh, weird. It's not changing.
It might be controlled by your primary computer audio. If it's sharing computer audio, you might be sharing the gain from your computer too. When you reduce the volume using the little bat, it worked. Think you got it? I think you're muted, Michael. Yeah.
So yeah, I can make these files HD MP4 files, and since they're not going to be transferred around, because they get huge, they get really big.
Right.
They probably won't be because we're just flopping back and forth on two different images. But all right, so yeah.
Hey, while you're in there, there's one I noticed tonight. We did this earlier to an image. I noticed tonight there's an image in there where there's like a relic, like a white line down the left-hand side of one of those images. If you could crop that off before you start loading it into the video.
What's that? Do you recall which one it?
Actually might be a couple of them. Let me just go look.
I see it right here.
Did you find it?
Yeah, do you see my screen?
No.
Share screen.
If he's going to share, oh, yeah, there it's on the left-hand side and in the top
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah, there's also a relic in the top right corner of that one too. I mean, these aren't the best files to begin with, so if you can clean them up a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, that won't be a problem. It's 3 minutes apiece. I'll just look through them, each one as I put them in and see how clean they are.
Okay. Yeah, that one's got it too.
Open my own question.
We might need to share those folders with you. Hang on. Let me just go make sure that you can access these folders. Oh yeah, everybody. Yeah, you have access to all the folders, Michael, to share them. They're just in that primary folder. Yeah, everybody's an editor on that folder. I probably should have turned that off for some people, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, this
I like
one's
software that
fine.
allows you to do like all this great collaboration, but the only problem is like a lot of times people do just jump in there and they just start jacking with stuff, and you're just like, okay, I can't put that back. Like after the script was loaded up there, I saw like 4 iterations of it the very next day, and I was like, well, okay.
Well, this one's fine. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, that one's fine. It's
mean,
a different, they're different dimensions, but it's fine. Just rotate through. So you'll have to do your canvas.
All right, so I'm good there. I'll knock those out quickly. I do
Sweet.
got a day job, so hopefully I can get this done tomorrow, but we'll see.
Okay.
Clarify, you will be sharing Darby's video tomorrow, Michael.
Where's it at? Is it here?
Well, it's that one right there, unless we get another one from her that I like better. So.
Alrighty, so
So I would just download that and output it. But you can also run her audio through a SoundCloud or something if you want.
all right, so
Make sure I take a what? Oh, photo.
you.
I'd been working in the city for
Yeah, there
nearly
she
a
is.
decade, and I was
So
doing well for
that's
myself
max volume for hers.
freelance artist.
Yeah, it was kind of low.
That is until COVID hit, and much like
Alrighty, well, if she's gonna alter it, let's tell her to boost her audio, because for me to do that is, well, I'd have to import that
Going to bed?
video
Here's a photo.
file, separate the audio, boost the audio, and then repaste back. So that's a little bit of a hassle for me. So
Okay.
let's get her to boost the audio, and it's easier to be able to turn her down, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So what do we have here?
Okay. Well, I'll tell her tomorrow if
Yeah, so let's do an
she'll be able to
even,
do that from her original files. Yes.
right. Let's go ahead and boost her up about 40%, and that way I can back her off if I need to.
Okay.
Give me a little headroom.
Okay.
And
qualified for the job, but what the heck? We should go for it. We joke.
all
Let me
right.
see.
Well,
Let me see what she produces. She was working on cutting together another video tonight too. So.
okay. Well, there's a other thing that one thing is to get. Well, I'm going to fix this thing so I don't have to plug in and out of the instruments, so that'll speed up the transitions. But I may have to catch up once a storyteller has started in between these technical things. I mean,
Oh,
when
I
I
think
asked,
that's fine. I think that's fine.
okay,
I liked your pickups anyway. Like I really think that like giving them some room to like get the thing started without music under it. Like there was one time when you cut out and I thought you were doing it on purpose, but like the music kind of faded away and then John came in and introduced the next story and it kind of got in and then you picked up like as the story like after they made an introduction and then as the story was starting is when you picked up and I thought
yeah,
it was beautiful. So
awesome.
I mean I feel like that's kind of like it's going to work to our advantage for you to have to do that in some cases, just, you know, if you're flipping back and forth from some of this added technical stuff. And if we get through rehearsal tomorrow and like one or two of them is just too much, like Brooke did fine with it tonight, so we can put one back on her if she needs to. But it sounds like Brooke, like the people are wanting a little more communication to be like, hey, come in, and it's yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're just wanting freedom to like not have to look at the screen or something, but
I mean, I can, I guess, text them, but I'm following in the script and making sure that I have.
right. I really don't know. Like when I kind of, as a person who's been in their shoes, I really don't have any sympathy for them when they say they need more. Like all you have to do is just pay attention. You know,
It's not that difficult.
Why is the name of the file showing up here at the top of this player?
It doesn't show up on the deal. And then once you take your mouse off of it, it'll go away. Like if you drop your mouse to the side, click play, and then run your mouse off this edge of the screen, it'll go away.
Yeah.
I see it.
Growing up in Oklahoma, which is a relatively young state.
All right, guys, I gotta get some sleep. Let's
what
let's
time
go
tomorrow?
ahead. You guys said 7. Let's go ahead and get 6:45 so we can at least get started with any issues. I'll be on at 6:45 and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I can do that, but I mean, we'll just, if nothing else, I'll just be on at 7. I have full confidence that after having this conversation or just now and having run through the stuff that we did tonight with zero rehearsal and doing as well as we did, I have no discomfort about any of it.
Sounds great. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for all your help, Michael, and you too,
Sure.
Brooke.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You guys have come so far in like 2 days. It's like I'm really happy. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Sweet dreams.